Hey guys, it's Zoe. Today I am going to be doing a channel. Awesome. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I saw Jade do over at JD Ray Reads. I will link her video down in the description box. This was an idea that she had, I think, like 2 in the morning or something, and it turned into a great video. I really enjoyed the way she did it, so I asked her if I could do my own take on it, and she said yes, so here we are. But before I get into that, here is today's language of the day. I've decided I'm going to do something a little bit different. I didn't do it last time, but I'm going to be doing it this time and every other time. Right about here, somewhere, I'm going to write out the words that I'm saying, so you can see what it looks like as well as hear it, and we'll see how well you guys like something like that. Hallo, wie geht es Ihnen? Heute ist Sonntag. Many of you guessed it right, the video in the last language was Greek. Yes, I kind of gave it away with the hint that it was one of my main languages, but I figured it was a good idea to at least make it easier on the first go around. So yeah, let's just get right into this bookish Wheel of Emotions. For those of you who don't know, this is based on Plutchik, possibly Plutchik's Wheel of Emotion. His theory is that there are 8 basic human emotions and the rest of them stem from that. Those 8 emotions are joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. So what Jade did and what I'm going to attempt to do is to assign a book to each of those emotions. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. The first emotion is joy, and this one might be a little bit obvious, but this book and this series in general has given me so much joy and so much happiness in my life, and I wouldn't be who I am without it, and that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I don't think I really need to go into why this makes me so happy, because I've done it before. While this series does tend to get pretty dark by the end, the whole thing in general just gives me so much joy. Can you text my mom and tell her we'll meet at 3:30? This book in particular, over the rest of this series, is the one that I go to when I'm feeling sad and I need something to cheer me up. I can't tell you how many times I have started reading this when I was about to become hysterical and it just calmed me down right away. I'm pretty sure if you look close enough you can find tear stains on the first few pages, because that's all it really takes to get me to become a happy person again. It's a miracle worker. It's like a Zoe whisperer. Does that even make sense? Probably not. The next emotion is trust, and for that I picked Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I picked this one not only for the book, but for the author. I trust Sarah J. Maas to write a book that I will love every single time. For those of you who don't know, this series follows a girl named Selena Sardathian. She's a young assassin who gets pulled out of a labor camp to compete in the King's Games to become the King's champion, basically his full-time assassin. This series features love triangles, hot princes, fae, magic, and other things that I will not say because it will spoil some things, but I love it. I'm a big fan of this series. Also, her Thwart of Corns and Roses. Holy sweet Jesus. A Court of Thorns and Roses is what we're trying to say here. Okay. We're moving on. The next emotion is fear, and I don't really have many books that would fit into that category because I hate horror, I hate being scared, I hate that emotion in general. There are only a couple books I have that have genuinely scared me because I just tend to steer clear from that genre, and the book I picked for this one is Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Allender. I read this, I think, in grade 10. It came out in 2009, so that would have been around that time, and I remember being terrified. I have another book by her called Marie Antoinette Serial Killer, and that one terrified me too, but I remember freaking out with this book. I don't remember what it's about. I blocked it out. Oh, good. There is a doll that a sister becomes obsessed with, obviously possessed by a demon. Let's see. When Alexis's little sister Casey becomes obsessed with an antique doll, Alexis thinks nothing of it. Naturally, a possessed doll. Okay. Casey is a weird kid, period. Alexis is considered weird too by the kids in her high school, by her parents, even by her own goth friends. Things get weirder though when the old house they live in starts changing, naturally. Doors open and close by themselves, water boils on the unlit stove, and an unplugged air conditioner turns the house cold enough for the girls to see their breath. I'm getting like chills reading this. I don't like reading even the description. Casey is changing too. Her blue eyes go green and she uses old-fashioned language, then forgets chunks of time. Ginny Weasley, anyone? Most disturbing of all is the dangerous new chip on Casey's shoulder. The formerly gentle, doll-loving child is gone, and the new Casey is angry. Angry is italicized. Alexis is the only one who can stop her sister, but what if the green-eyed girl isn't even Casey anymore? Terrified. just by reading that description. I have chills, probably won't sleep later. I don't like this. I remember it being a good book, but I remember being scared. I think I remember sleeping with the light on for like a week after this. I do that a lot. Terrified, just even thinking about it. Okay, we're moving on to the next one. So the next emotion is surprise, and I took that as a book that surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. I have talked about this one in another video, and this book is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Like I said in that other video, I avoided Anne of Green Gables my entire life. I was just so against it for God knows what reason, because this is one of my favorite books now. It was the most wholesome, heartwarming, just beautiful story I have ever read. I love it. And on top of that, it's a good Canadian story too. There's not many of those out there, at least that I know of. If anybody has any good recommendations for Canadian stories or Canadian authors or anything like that, please leave those down below. I would love to read more about my own country. I was honestly genuinely surprised though by how much I love this book. I couldn't stop reading. I flew through the entire thing. It's not even 300 pages, so it didn't take me long to get through it. It's quite a thin book, and the font is a nice happy medium size, not too big, not too small, so I just flew right through this. I was so engrossed in Anne's story that I couldn't put it down. This is one of those books where I suffered from a book hangover after. I didn't know what to do with myself. I wanted to reread it, but I wanted to read more stories, but I wanted to continue this, but I was afraid to read the sequels. It was just a hot mess. But I love this book, and it surprised me by how much I really did enjoy it. The next emotion on the wheel is sadness, and for this one, I chose The Allison Rules by, who's this by? Catherine Clark. I read this, I think, maybe grade 7 or 8, I'm not entirely sure, and I remember bawling like a baby. I don't remember much about what this is about, except the fact that Allison, the main character, has, as the title suggests, a lot of rules for life. The reason Allison feels the need to stick so tightly to her rules is that she thinks that these rules are the only way she can deal with the pain of her mother's death. While she is dealing with what admittedly seems like a form of OCD, a boy named Patrick comes to town and teaches her how to live life again after this horrible, horrible tragedy that she went through. I remember crying in this one as much as I did in My Sister's Keeper and while reading The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Those two books ruined me, and so did this one. This is one of those books, though, that I will probably never reread because I hate crying that much. I cry enough as it is. I don't want to read something that is going to make me cry even more. The next emotion on this wheel is disgust, and for this one I took one of the more secondary emotions from that, and that one is boredom. This book disgusted me with how bored it made me, and that is The Kingdom of Little Wounds by Suzanne Cockle, possibly Cockle. I've talked about this one before as well. I've never been so bored in my entire life. I've heard the saying tossed around that something is like watching paint dry, and honestly I would rather do that than read this book again. I would rather watch grass grow, watch paint dry, watch anything. I would literally rather do anything other than read this book again. Although I think I might hate myself a little bit because just out of curiosity I want to reread, or at least try rereading, to see if under a different set of circumstances I enjoy this book more. I highly doubt it, but there is a small chance that I might like this on the second go around. But I might do that while watching paint dry, just for a good comparison. This is a historical fiction novel set in Scandinavia. That alone was enough to pull me in. I love historical fiction, and Scandinavia is not really a common setting for historical fiction. Most of what I read is usually set in England or in France, but this was something completely different. It features all of the court intrigue I would ever want, but it was just done in such a way that I was uninterested and bored the entire time. I'm not 100% sure what year this is set in. I can't remember. I honestly really can't be bothered to remember because I dislike this book so much. I think this is the only historical fiction that I've ever read that I really disliked. It's one of my favorite genres, and I'm always intrigued by it, except for this one, which is probably why I want to reread and give it another chance, because I don't like not enjoying a historical fiction. The next emotion on this list is anger. For this one, I chose a book that made me so mad with the way it ended. I almost tossed this across the room. This ending bothered me so much. It felt like a complete cop-out. I can't deal with it. And this book is The Fate of the Tearling by Erika Johansen. I won't say how it ended. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I know some people who enjoyed the ending, but for me, it really, really made me upset. One of the main reasons why I hated it so much is because I really loved this series. I loved the entire concept. I loved the way it was set up to make you believe one thing, and then it turned into something entirely different. I loved it. I loved everything about this series. except for the ending. I thought this book had so much potential to go a different way. I was so curious to see how they would get out of the jam that they were in, and then it was just a cop-out. I'm not 100% sure if it was the author worked her way into a corner or not and couldn't find a way out of it, or if this was planned right from the beginning. Either way, I did not like the way this ended. This is one of those books where I wanted to reread the series. I knew I would want to reread it up till almost the last like 100 pages of this. And then with that, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna reread this again, and if I do, I probably won't read the ending, which is weird, but I think that might be the only way I can process what went on and deal with how little I liked the ending. It set me up for such an epic conclusion, and then it just crushed all of my dreams. It was horrible. It wasn't horrible. It was well written. I love this story. I love everything about it except those final few moments. I might give this a reread though, with the ending included, just to see if I feel differently about it this time, because it's been a couple of years since I read it, and I'm curious to see if I've changed enough to enjoy the ending. I doubt it, but there's always hope. The next emotion on this list is anticipation, and I took that as a sequel I am most anticipating. I have loved everything this author has written. She is one of those ones that I trust completely to write a fantastic book that checks off every one of my boxes. I don't know when the sequel to this will be released, but this book is Imprudence by Gail Carriger. From everything I know, the book is going to be called Competence, and it should be released sometime in 2018. This is a sequel series to the Custard Protocol. No, this one's the Custard Protocol. That one is called the Parasol Protectorate, and the prequel series to that one is the Finishing School series. These are historical fiction steampunk novels set in an alternate universe England. The Parasol Protectorate follows a character named Alexis. I've talked about that in another video. I will link that down below. And the Finishing School series follows a whole different set of characters, but some of them do show up in the Parasol Protectorate, and I'm not going to tell you who this series follows because that's kind of a spoiler, but you should read the Parasol Protectorate before the Custard Protocol. This one, the first one, is called Prudence, to know what's going on. They will be very, very confused if you read this one first, this series first. I cannot wait for this sequel. From what I've read, I think there might be even 2 more in this series. I love everything about it. I love the entire cast of characters. I love her style of writing. I love historical fiction. I love steampunk. This is fantastic. And it's a supernatural historical fiction, so there are vampires and werewolves, but it's done well and not in a cheesy, overdone kind of way. I'm a big fan. So that was my take on the Bookish Wheel of Emotions. If you guys have any similarities to the books that I corresponded with the emotions, feel free to leave those down in the comments, as well as books that you would associate with those emotions. As with this video, in the next one, I will tell you what the language I spoke at the beginning was, and how well people in the comments did, and how well they thought I did with my pronunciation. I think that's all I really had to say for today. To stay updated with my current reads and how I'm feeling about them, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, all at You're a Book Nerd Zoe. I will link all of those down in the description box below. That's it for me. I hope you all have a wonderful day and get at least a little bit of uninterrupted reading time. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!